everyone, welcome to the Business of Aesthetics podcast. My name's Sarah MacDonald. I'm a digital marketer for aesthetics, and I'm so excited today because today's guest is one of the best aesthetic business coaches around. Fiona, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Fiona Macaskill. I'm a business and confidence coach, really, because I want to give you tons and tons of confidence in your aesthetics business, because actually it is the key to thriving. It's the key from taking it from kind of this hobby that you've been doing that isn't very profitable to a really, really profitable business.
And Fiona's experience is unbelievable. She's got one of the best business brains that I have ever come across. She's worked with so many incredible big companies in the film industry, in television, and some really big aesthetic clinics. And if I could take her business brain out of her head and put it into mine, I would do tomorrow, because the knowledge she has got is phenomenal. So we're going to chat about all the problems that you might come across in your aesthetics business, especially from starting out to even wanting to grow it, and some hints and tips and some problem solving suggestions that you can take away to make your business thrive. I had an aesthetics clinic back in 2018, and I struggled to run the business side of the business, because you do your training and you think, brilliant, I'm trained. You leave that day course or 2-day course or week course, and you're so excited to get doing the treatments that you actually forget all about the business side of aesthetics and how difficult it is. Do you find that that's a common theme that you get when people come to you for business coaching when it comes to aesthetics?
Yeah, I think the biggest frustration is that the skills that bring people into wanting to run an aesthetics business are not the skills they need to run the business. So, they might be great clinicians, they've come from a medical background, they feel really confident with those skills. And in fact, they actually pick up the clinical skills of aesthetics really, really easily. And that's their comfort zone. And we all like to sit in our comfort zone. And so you kind of get into this feel that, I really enjoy it. I love the transformation process. They love dealing with people for really positive reasons rather than potentially negative reasons from their original career and background. And they think that that's what will help them achieve a profitable business. Yeah. And, I wish that was the case, but it isn't the case. And actually, that's why we can be in the industry with people who aren't delivering great treatments, but they seem to have a thriving business, because actually they're really good at the business and marketing side, not so good at the clinical side, and yet they're absolutely seem to be kind of steamrolling their way ahead. And you can have brilliant clinicians who are amazing at what they do, can achieve great transformations, but they can't get bottoms on seats. They can't get their head round how to go from, what feels like a hobby that's consuming their time and their energy, but actually isn't making them any money, and they can't make that transfer over. And I think the problem is that a lot of people think, it's all about marketing then. So they've got clinical skills and they've got those in the bag, and then they start trying to gather up some marketing skills and get them in the bag, and they spend 80% of their time worrying about social media and all of those, and they don't look at the business on the whole. They don't work out, what do I need to do? What do I need to learn? What else can I get into my toolkit that allows me to understand the business world? And very few people, I think, are natural business people. I think people perhaps have a lean towards it more than other people, but it's not rocket science. None of it's rocket science. A lot of it is just get stuck in and learn how to do it.
And they're just skills. The business side is skills, exactly like you learn with the injecting side, but it's just something that I'm a nurse by background, went into aesthetics. The business side almost to me was an afterthought. It was more like, you need to get the skills of the injecting, right, okay, I need to get my marketing going. And then I was 6-12 months into it before I realised that I actually didn't have a clue if I was making any money. I didn't know if I were profitable. I wouldn't even be able to tell you how much the treatments brought in for my business after my consumables. And without knowing all that, my business ultimately, it wasn't thriving, because I didn't know what I was doing with the business side. It almost needs to be that you have to bring that in sooner rather than later if you want to be successful.
I think business has such a bad reputation because, you hear, if you hear anything about business, it's about, right, if you're going to start a business, you have to do a business plan and you have to do this. And it all sounds really tedious and boring. If I ever make anybody do a business plan, I call it a profit plan, not a business plan, because you want to make profit in your business. Ultimately, you go into business to make money.
You do, but everyone's frightened of saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody talks about, and I applaud this, but everybody talks about helping other people and, wanting to get great transformations and how good that makes them feel. And I say, yeah, but actually business is really, really hard work. And this idea of having financial freedom and kind of being more time rich and all of those kind of things, yes, absolutely, they can be true in the long run. In the short term, though, it rarely is the case. You just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. You will spend far more time working on your business than you ever did working in the NHS to begin with. And you've got to really want it. You've got to be really prepared to do that. Because if you're not prepared to do that, if you're not prepared to sacrifice to begin with, actually, I honestly wouldn't go into it. I mean, keep doing aesthetics if you want to, but go and work for somebody else who's understands how to run the business. But if you really want it, if you've got that, that little voice inside you that says, I want to do aesthetics, I want my own business, I want that financial freedom, I want that future, then be prepared to sacrifice and learn. Because when you learn, you become confident. And that's what it's about. That's why I call myself a business and confidence coach, because I want you to be confident in what you're doing. I want you to learn those skills. And then I want you to be able to say to the marketing people you're working with, this is what I want and this is how I want it. I want you to be able to talk to your ideal customers, to your perfect patients and say, this is who I'm speaking to. Because if you're marketing to everybody, you're marketing to nobody at all.
No.
So you've got to get those skills yourself, bring up your own level of confidence, and then you can really make your business sing. And I think unless you do that in the beginning, then you end up going round in circles, which is really
And there is a huge gap within the industry. Like, you literally, every other post is about an educational training school when it comes to the injecting side. Anyone who's ever done aesthetics for more than 12, 18 months seems these days to want to open up an academy and teach everyone else how to inject. But then these people are leaving these courses and there's a massive gap of where they can learn those skills and who is there to teach them those skills. Because I don't feel, and I certainly know back when I trained in aesthetics, I did all the courses that I could for the injected side, and my answer to not feeling confident within aesthetics and not feeling confident within running a clinic was to just do another course and get more treatments under my belt. Then I can offer more things. When really I was probably more looking for some business advice on how to run a business and how to make the treatments that I were doing more profitable. And there wasn't anyone back then that I knew where I could get this information from. And I think that there is a gap in skills and there's a gap in knowledge. Most of us come from the NHS where we don't have to find patients. They're flowing freely. Like there's more demand than there is people giving the treatments in the NHS. And it's a complete flip because now there's a lot of competition. And I've noticed a theme that the businesses who are thriving, like you say, they're not always the best injectors. They're the best business people. Yeah. And that is the difference.
And yet there can be a perfect combination. There can be that perfect combination of being a fabulous injector and a fabulous business person. And, there's no reason why those things should be separate. And actually, the other reason for really learning these skills to begin with is that you won't do all of them brilliantly. Nobody does everything brilliantly in their business.
And you become more overwhelmed.
You do. But the more you learn them, and then the more you make good business choices, the more you become profitable, then you can hand some of those jobs over to other people. The jobs that you don't like doing, you can say, right, okay, I'm not doing those anymore, but I understand it. I understand what I want from it. And it's like working with great marketeers, is that they can only help you if you can express to them what you want, if you can tell them who you're trying to market to, if you can tell them who your perfect patient is, if you can try and explain who you are, what's your USP, what are you bringing to the market? Because it is a saturated market, But I really, really firmly believe that you can become a destination clinician. And what that means to me is that you understand who you're marketing to, you understand who your perfect person is, you understand what your own unique talents are, what is it that you're offering to people and why would they come to you. And once you start to understand those things, once you start to look at how you're making profit in your business, then you can offer that out to the right people. And then the right people will only want to come to you. It wouldn't matter if you were on a high street and you had somebody to the right or the left of you, because you're saying all the right things to the right people and they're coming to you. And that's when you start to get this flow of clients who then refer on to other clients. And that's when you start to make meaningful profit in your business. You can start analysing what's working, what's not working. And then, glory be, once you start making some decent money, then you can say, oh, I'm going to have a monthly accountant who's going to do all of that stuff for me, which I understand, but is a total pain. Or, I'm really going to trust this marketeer to do my SEO and, my social media posts and keep my website up to date and make sure all my blogs are happening. So you can afford to pay people. And that's the ultimate goal, is to start making money, then grow your team a little bit, grow in confidence and move forward. And, that is the holy grail, getting to that point.
That is the holy grail. For new injectors who are just starting out, they're in the first 6-12 months, or they're within the first couple of years in aesthetics, they've got all the skills when it comes to the injecting side, they're more confident with the treatments. What would you say that you find is the biggest skill gap with those individuals when it comes to running a business?
First of all, it's just understanding the functionality of business. I say to people who've been in business for 5 years, what's your average sale? And I get this blank look from them of, what exactly do you mean by your average sale? I say, well, on average, for those people who come through your business on a monthly basis, on average, what do they pay you? And there is this deafening silence. And the thing is, if you don't understand what your average sale is it £250? Is it £350? Is it £1,000? Is it only £125?
Yeah. Because
actually you're doing far more skincare treatments than perhaps you should be doing, and therefore you've not got enough profitability. If you don't know what that is, how can you work out how many clients you need coming through the door to cover all your fixed and floating costs for the month? How can you work out how to target yourself to grow? I'll also say to people, so how many hours a week can you actually inject? So I'm not talking about working on your business. I'm not talking about all those hours you'll sit on your sofa in front of the television kind of planning things out. But how much time do you have to inject in your business? And, have you broken that down to half-hour appointments and hour appointments? And then what's your average sale? So how many people do you need to see to make your business sing and be profitable? And just basic questions like that, people can't answer. And I know people who've been in business for 5 years and still can't answer that. So they may have had some success, which is great, but they have no idea how to replicate that success. So they have no idea how to grow. And very importantly, when things are quieter or they're going wrong, they don't know how to put them right because they've not analysed anything in their business at all. And I think some of it is fear, because people worry that they're not making enough money in their business. But rather than looking it in the face, they just go, oh, I'm not making enough money. And want to go and
but that's a big fear, isn't it? Because for clinics or from clinicians, they invest so much money into that training. Like, it's thousands and thousands of pounds to train before you've even got one patient into your clinic. And that fear of failure in aesthetics is huge, because you've got to be honest, you open a business, not many people are rooting for you when you're a new business owner. I mean, you tell people that you're going to uni to study to be a nurse or a doctor, everyone's almost like applauding you, like, well done you. The minute you turn around and say, I'm going to learn aesthetics, I'm going to open my own business, you don't get that same support that you anticipate that you might do. And I think then people are just scared to death of failing, because it's almost then people are like, well, I told you so. You should have stuck with the NHS and you should have stuck with medicine. And that fear, I think, is overwhelming. And do you find that a lot of people come to you because they're scared they're failing because they've not done the bottom line maths, they don't know the ins and outs of the business, and now that fear is built on the failing of the business?
Yeah, I think what you've just said is really true. I think initially when people say I'm going to open a business, there's a lot of sucking of teeth that goes on, a lot of, are you sure you really want to do that? Which kind of like knocks at your confidence a little bit anyway.
Always.
But then it's actually even worse, say a year in. So you might have had a bit of a success and organically you've attracted some people, and then you've started hitting a few bumps in the road, because inevitably it's easy to attract 10 people into your business, even maybe 20. And then you're starting to go, ooh, I'm grinding to a bit of a halt. People are even worse when they see that you've had a bit of success
and lost it.
And then they're like, well, you've been lucky, haven't you, that you've got this far, and then that knocks your confidence. And it's not true to say that nobody supports you. Of course, some people do support you.
Yeah.
But it is about comfort zones, because most people exist in a comfort zone, and, they want the people they love to stay in that comfort zone too, because it's not a scary place, and they know that, they can earn money in their original profession and all of that kind of thing. And so actually almost this transferred fear goes on of kind of like, oh, well, don't do it, because it might go wrong, and then what if it goes wrong, and then they're worried for you. So it can come from a bit of jealousy, it can come from worry, and you've got to be strong. And that comes back to really wanting to do it. You have got to want to run your business.
Yeah, you have to find your why, the why you're doing it, and that almost has to be a driver. It has to be the why to do it is you need to get there, because where you are at the minute is not your comfort zone. And I think people see failure always as a negative, but like the best lessons come from the biggest failures. And the only difference between successful businesses, I find, and failed businesses are the people who give up when they fail are the ones who ultimately do fail. Whereas successful businesses, they have many failures throughout the business career, but they keep going at it. Yeah. So because the why is a bigger driver for them than throwing in the towel.
Yeah, the two most important things in business are consistency and tenacity. If you've got those two things, you will succeed. If you can consistently apply things that you learn. So you've got to take time to learn stuff. When you've taken time to learn it, you've got to consistently apply it day in and day out and day in and day out. And then you have to be tenacious when you're falling flat on your face, when something isn't quite working, or, when you've, tried to do your social media posts and you feel just like a complete freak because you think everybody's looking at you and it's a flipping nightmare. When all of these things are happening, you still have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, being consistent and being tenacious. And if you can do that, I absolutely promise you, anybody out there, you will succeed. I promise you'll succeed, because a lot of people get to a point and they give up. And the only way I can describe it is if somebody's ever told you about this great beauty spot, that exists just around the corner of this bay. And so you set off with your kids and your baggage, and it feels like hard work getting there, and you've stomped along the beach and you've still not found it. And you said, it's around here somewhere. And then you give up and you go home because it's all too much and the bags are too heavy and the kids are too noisy. And so you turn around, climb in the car and go home. And then when you get home, you just look on the map and go, where was it? It's like, oh, Lord, just round the corner. And that's business, because you never know when it is going to be just around the corner, and you have to keep pushing forward. And when you keep pushing, you will get there. But it isn't easy, and there's no point in pretending it's easy. And there's no point in pretending that you're just doing it for the good of everybody else's health. You've also got to do it because you want to make money and you want to be successful. Because those things are important. It's like sales. I love talking about sales. I'm passionate about sales, because consultations, you would think, are the most natural thing in the world for medical professionals to do. And therefore, consultations in aesthetics, people go, oh, yeah, no, I'm quite good at consultations. No. And I go, okay, you might be good at the consultation, the medical part of it. Are you good at the other half, which is the business consultation? Learn to do that, because unless you learn to sell, there is no point in being a business. It is the oxygen that keeps your business going, learning to sell to people. So you have to take your natural skills with consultation, marry them up with your sales skills. That's the two halves of your brain coming together and driving forward. But they're skills you have to learn. not many people find it. It's a natural thing.
Again, there's very limited places you can go for these skills. This is the problem with the industry and the aesthetics industry. All these they're telling people that they can, offer these treatments and make money, and obviously a lot of these educational providers probably do, because they've cracked the code. They know how to be profitable. They've cracked the business code, but they're leaving these injectors out, like they're leaving these day courses, 2-day courses, with optimism, and it's very quickly dashed. And I think that's where your mindset needs to come in. If I was to come to you and say, forget that I've done aesthetics, forget that I know anything about marketing, and I have just finished my first 1-day course, or whatever it is, 2-day course, and I've learnt my Botox and my fillers. If you were to say, these are going to be your biggest challenges, but these are the things that you can do to overcome them, what would be your top 3 biggest challenges and biggest hacks that you can give me to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I would say the first thing you need to work out is how to be a piece of juicy jam. Sounds silly, but can you imagine if you have a little cracker, okay, or a big piece of toast? If you put a blob of juicy jam on a piece of toast and spread it around and take a bite, yeah, it tastes nice, it's all right, that's fine. If you dollop that jam on a cracker and shoved it all in your mouth, it would like explode with taste and be thinking, oh, that's delicious. You've got to work out how to be delicious in the market. You've got to work out how to be that juicy piece of jam. So you come out of your training course, you think, I've got these skills in the bag. I've got to learn how to offer those skills to my right people. So before you do anything else, you sit down and work out your perfect person. And very importantly, your own USP. Then when you've got those, you tie those up in a little bow and think, right, where do I need to be located to find the most those people? Is that a home-based clinic because they really value discretion? Is that on a high street because they want a big glossy clinic, the people I'm aiming for, and they want that lovely big glossy visibility? What is it? So location is really important, but it has to be aligned to who you are selling to. So you look at location, and then you start saying, what am I aiming for? I always say, have you got targets? And people go, well, goals. And I go, yeah. Goals have a bad reputation as well, because we all start them in January, and by the middle of January we've lost the plot. By February we've completely forgotten them.
I can't even remember what mine were from this January.
But they are so important, but not in that woolly sense of where do you want to be in 5 years' time. It drives me nuts when people say, imagine where you want to be and then the world will align and you'll get there.
Oh, manifestation.
And you know what? I'm all about thinking positive, definitely, and a positive thought process gets you in the right way. Attitude is everything, but you have to go, where do I want to be in 12 months' time? I might in 5 years' time might want world domination, but where do I want to be in 12 years' time? I'm sat here now, where do I want to be? Then you think about where you want to be in 12 years' time and you reverse engineer it over that 12-month period back to the point you're standing. So you've come out of your courses, you've got your skills, you've worked out who you are, you've worked out who your perfect person is, you've found the right location to match up with all of that.
Yeah.
And then you think, right, what am I trying to achieve in this first month? Am I trying to get 5 clients, 10 clients? How many hours do I want to inject? Then you have to think about your price list. And prices, people set prices on. They go, who else? Who else is around here and what are they charging?
You just compare to the nearest clinic and then try and be competitive.
Well, you blob somewhere in the middle, don't you?
Yeah.
And what if the people on to the right and left of you have got their profits wrong and you've gone somewhere in the middle?
Because they've probably done the same as you have, and you're all guessing then.
Yeah, you're all in the middle of the wrong point. And obviously, benchmarking is important. You don't want to be way out of left field. But ultimately, you need to make sure that you can cover all your fixed costs. You've got to make sure that you can pay yourself. You've got to make sure that there's a little bit of profit in it so that you can plough the profit back into your business. You have to understand what is the makeup of the prices that you are charging and then align them with everything that's going on. And only benchmark against other people who are similar to you. Don't benchmark against people who maybe have a big glossy clinic somewhere, or if they're home based and you're not, because their costs are going to be way lower than yours. So you have to understand what your costs are, and then you have to understand where you want to spend the money to get the most gain out of it.
And I think you hear this a lot, about. I feel like strategy is like a big business buzzword that is thrown around left, right and centre, and everyone says, oh, you need a strategy, or you need a strategy for your marketing, and you need a strategy for this. And I think it's an overused term, number one, and a lot of people just use it as a buzzword, when ultimately strategy is just you looking at what resources are available to you within budget, and then identifying which is going to be the best to put funds into it, time, whatever the other resource is, to get the best results from what you're putting into. And I think this is where people fall down, because you start in aesthetics, you've got all these resources available to you in terms of different marketing, business tools, ploughing money into different things. And I think if you were to say what are going to get you the best results for your business when it comes to using resources, what would you say that is worth investing in for a clinic?
So obviously marketing is worth investing in, but it doesn't have to be, to begin with, all about paying out loads of money to do that marketing. So websites is a big controversial thing. I've heard lots of people say, oh, I don't need a website. People have told me I don't need a website. And I go, well, the problem is you do have to have a shop front, and search engines are still the number one place that people are going to find you, because social media relies on interruption marketing all the way. You are just interrupting somebody on a journey to somewhere else.
Or passive scrolling, trying to wind down.
And they've got so many touch points between when they first see you before they ever book you, that's a kind of exhausting road to go down. Is it important? Of course it is. I'm not saying for 1 second you shouldn't have social media or do social media. I'm just saying it shouldn't be weighted the way it is of 80% of your what's going on in your mind. TikTok's a bit different, because actually that's being used more and more as a search engine now, which is useful. But websites, I still think, are massively useful, because it means you can get yourself up there with your Google business profile and create a website, even if it's a basic 5-page one where it's just about you, about your treatments, your prices. Go with that so that you have that visibility and you can be searched, and get your Google business profile
and it's
going.
I don't know if I'd trust a business these days who didn't have a website. It's a trust thing as well. I think you have to be visible online, because that is where people are finding treatments, or any kind of business at the minute. People are going to Google search, but ultimately if the website is not there, or they don't have a website, it does make you think, how legitimate are they as a business, because they've not got what would seem as just the basics of business resources these days is a website. A lot of people hold off doing marketing because they feel like it's cringe and they don't want to get in front of the camera. And I feel like when you talk about mindset a lot in business, I think that is one of the biggest barriers to anybody being successful in any business, I think, is mindset. And I've had a call with a client this week who, she's like, I know I need to do my marketing, blah, 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 and I talked to her and I'm like, what's stopping you doing your social media? What is stopping it? Well, I don't want to get up. And I think you put so much pressure on yourself to do your own marketing because you're frightened of being cringe. And the biggest change in my mindset has been how I think about social media. And I've also, now I see my social media as it's just a business tool. It's not for my friends and family anymore. And this is just a business tool for me to get my message across to as many people who are interested. And I just think being raw and authentic on social media and speaking from the heart is massive. And so many people have that mindset barrier of doing it because they're worried about what people who ultimately are not paying their bills are going to think. And I think that's where a lot of the mindset work comes in.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because so I have a group course which I love doing, and the thing about it is I always laugh at everybody and say, I am 55 years old. If I can get onto social media and get my face up in front of people and witter on at them, then you can too. Honestly, you should think about your social media as actually try not to encourage family and friends to follow you. Because if you think that people who know you personally are watching you, it makes you a bit more kind of like cringy about it.
It's a business tool.
Yeah, and you don't want loads of other clinicians following you either. No. That throws the algorithm off, but also actually this is for your audience. Yeah. This is for your your perfect people. It's not for anybody else. And, you know, if you're genuinely passionate about transforming their lives, then just get onto social media and tell them that you're passionate about it. And that's what I try and think of. So I have this little mantra in my head that I just go, attitude is everything. So I just think if I've got to do something, I just go, Fiona, attitude is everything. I get on there and say whatever I think. Am I the best on social media? Absolutely not. Do I sound like a complete numpty sometimes? Yes, I probably do. Do I look like the most beautiful put together person most of the time? No, I don't. And in fact, the worst comment I have ever had on social media is somebody said, you're an aesthetics coach. Do you not know enough clinicians to fix your face?
I got trolled on my TikTok. They said, it was an American guy, says it all. And he was like, I think maybe you're just having a midlife crisis. And then he inboxed me afterwards, like quite nasty comments. I'm not going to say them. And I just thought, oh, I've made it. I've been trolled, so I've made it. So I actually saw it as a positive that someone's took the time out of the day to troll me. I thought, oh, I've made it. I'm happy.
Well, the thing is, you can't control what anybody else thinks or does. You can't. What you can do is you can control your own attitude. You can control getting yourself out there, and you can control your mind in terms of saying, what am I doing it for? And this comes back to you saying, you know, the why is so important. Because if you're doing it for really, really good reasons, if you do want financial freedom in the long run, if you do want
no more
time
night
for yourself,
shifts,
all of that kind of thing, then you need to take the time to do it. And that it does include social media. You know, just get out there and do it. And you'll get better at it. And then, you know, you'll meet lovely people who will be able to help you with it. And often it's the editing that will put people off because they're terrified of being able to splice this, that and the other together. I have to say, I very rarely edit anything because I haven't got the time or the energy to edit it. So I just get it out there. So if that's all you can do to begin with, just get it out there.
And don't aim for perfection. Like, I think the posts that are doing really well at the minute are the ones that aren't perfect, the ones where you stutter a little bit, the ones that show that you're a real human and you're not some super edited cyborg do a lot better. I think a lot of clinicians get this wrong as well. I think they go with the marketing in a very sales manner, and I think they miss the fact that what they're trying to do is more storytelling and building trust and like trying to appeal to their ideal avatar of a patient and go into sales heavy. I think that's a big mistake. Like, they just basically want to talk about the treatments, book now, and I think that puts a lot of people off online because on social media people aren't there to be sold to. And I think that's a big message that I would like as a marketer would get across is add value. Think to yourself before you post it, what are people going to take away from this post? Are they going to learn something? And I think if you go with that attitude towards your marketing, that can help with that mindset because you're not selling, you're not doing the hard sell all the time. You're trying to add value and trying to educate people and trying to help them. I mean, aesthetic treatments massive, and it's predicted, I think, I saw it in the Aesthetics Journal, it's predicted to rise again next year by another like 8 point something %. So your treatments are going to be in more demand. So you're not annoying people. If you can put your content online to help educate and point people in the right direction to the right treatments for their budget and explain that and add value to them, then that should help you get over the mindset of I'm being cringe, I'm annoying people, because you're there to educate and help. And I think that's a big key take home from any marketing that you should be doing.
And I think that's important in all your multiple layers of marketing. You know, when it comes to email marketing as well, people, I always encourage people to do email marketing in the business. Nobody tends to do it to begin with because they can't think of what to write or how to do it. But that whole sales thing also applies. You know, for every 4 emails you send out, only one of them should be a sales email. The rest should be interesting, engaging, educational. Otherwise, why would people bother opening them up in the first place to bother to be just sold to? But, you know, everything that you do should, if it is aimed to your perfect person, then they're interested in what you've got to say. And actually the sale becomes a natural part of what you're doing rather than an actual and intentional buy now. Your sales then move to in-person in clinic, one-on-one, because you've got that, you've introduced yourself to them with your marketing, then you've nurtured that relationship, there's a trust been built with your social media, then you might have
introduce them to what treatments are available, might be by email or however they might have gone on your website. So then the sales is that one-on-one conversation of, right, what's concerning you? What is your budget? This is what I think would work best for you. And being confident that what you're offering is going to be a solution to what they've come into your clinic with. That's where your sales comes in. And I think this is where a lot of people miss. The sales content being either over a screen, it just doesn't have the same impact as you sitting down with someone, having that honest, open chat with them about the budget. People don't want to tell people what the budget is via a DM on Instagram. Oh, I've only got £100. They don't want to do that. They want to trust and they want to sit down and they want to talk through options. And I think that's where the sales part of is missing. Yeah. Like you said, with people who are nurses and doctors who are used to just people coming in with a problem and you having the solution for it.
And also, it's an entirely different thing, isn't it? Talking to somebody because they have to see you and chat to you about something, and it's a very fundamental thing that's affecting them, and actually selling them something that is essentially a nice to have. That's what you're selling them, a nice to have. I mean, I love doing sales because for me, it's about selling happiness. It's not about selling a product. So that's the important thing. But also, there are loads of things you can do, from using the rule of 3, all sorts of different techniques that make it easier as a clinician to sell to people, and makes it easier for them to accept the sale because they understand the whole process. And actually, converting somebody starts at the moment when they first see you and have all of those lovely touch points along the way. But you have to learn to capitalise on them, on all those touch points, until the fact that they're sat in front of you, then you get to the end of the conversation and they actually say to you, so how much will that cost?
Yeah.
And you then don't have to be naming
and
all of these
stop feeling that where you don't want to tell them how much something is. I think that was a big thing for me when I started doing aesthetics. I'd almost not have fixed costs in my head because I'd be like
all the time,
gauging someone's reaction and trying to work out what the budget is and almost trying to please them with what I could offer. Like,
and then this discount falls out of your mouth.
Discount Tourette's. And then you get that awful feeling when you do tell them how much something is. You get this awful anxiety of like, oh God, how are they going to take it? Like you could have offended them. And I think, again, it's that mindset.
Yeah, I love to try and solve all that. I spend, several of my modules through the live coaching. It's a 6-month program. So, there's a lot of time to talk about these things, but it's about how you role play through all of that type of thing. In fact, I've just done some modules for Tioxane on business side of things, and one of them is selling. And it's important. You should be proud to sell, because sales has got such, again, a bad reputation. So many things in business that have a bad reputation, but sales has a bad reputation because everybody thinks of
sleazy salesman.
Yeah, and cold calling. In my day, it was the man walking outside the door with their encyclopedias, knocking on, saying,
door to doors. I remember door to door sales.
But people, the truth is, sales feel awkward for a lot of people, and they just have a bad reputation. But actually, that doesn't have to be what sales is about. If you're pitching it to the right people, and you're giving them right message, and you're giving them value for money, and that doesn't make it cheap, but value for money, they're getting a profit on what they're giving you. So they're giving you money, you're giving them a profit in happiness on what they're buying from you. Then there is nothing awkward about sales at all.
And they've approached you.
Yeah.
You're not going into their house and forcing aesthetic treatments on them.
Yeah.
They've found you online, or they might have found you, you might have had a referral. They've found you. They've come to you first. They've instigated that first move. So don't have the blockers of mindset behind, I don't want to sell to them. They want the services. They're asking you about them. So...
you wouldn't go into a clothes shop, would you, and say, I really like that jumper. Could I have 25% off, please? You don't expect that when you go and buy something. And yet somehow when people come and sit in front of you as a clinician, you feel this need to offer them this 10% off or 15% off to get them to buy it. And you just don't need to do that. What you need to do is be confident, develop confident body language, understand that what you're selling has real value and that you are offering value. And at the end of the day, if they don't want it, they don't want it. That's fine.
They're not your people.
Yeah, they're not your people, or they just need time to consider it, which is absolutely fine, and they'll come. But then, then I do move people on to upselling and cross-selling, which always makes me laugh because they kind of go, I've just mastered the art of saying that's £260 for 3 areas or whatever it is they're charging. And now you want me to tell them it's going to be, and I said, don't worry, it's all a process. But actually, you have to learn to upsell and you have to learn to cross-sell because it is a business. And imagine if you grow your business, then you'll take on other staff.
Yeah.
You as the business owner have to teach those other staff to sell so that your business is thriving. So never be embarrassed by it.
It's something that you're not taught. It's something that none of us has taught, unless you've done business, or you've been to business school. It's not a skill that you do leave your degree or them courses with, and that's the issue. That's why so many aesthetics clinics are failing, because they've not got the business side, they've not got the sales skills, they don't have a clue about marketing, and this is where the whole thing falls down. And they go from having this optimistic view of being this business owner, and they have this, I'm going to be brilliant, it's going to be great, and then they hit the pit of despair, and everything looks uphill because they've not done the basics,
the
groundwork.
Yeah.
So would you say that if you are going to open an aesthetic clinic, or you've got an aesthetic clinic, then the groundwork needs to start with that business plan?
Yeah, so I have a business tree. That's what I use. I have this beautiful butterfly business tree. But underneath the business tree is all this root work. 80% of your business is root work. You have got to get that root work right in your business so that it can feed your beautiful butterfly tree with lots of nutrients and lots of energy so that it can grow big and strong. And when it grows big and strong and you've got that root work right, it doesn't matter if the economy's a bit dodgy or somebody opens up down the road from you, because your roots are so strong and you've got multiple layers of business in there, you've got multiple layers of marketing, and the trunk of your tree stays really strong and stable, and you grow all these beautiful branches. And I call it a business tree because ultimately in business you want to be, like that butterfly tree or that butterfly bush. We've all seen them in the summer where the butterflies come and they come and sit on it. The tree doesn't need to do anything. It just sits there and it attracts its own butterflies. And actually different trees attract different butterflies. Different bushes attract different butterflies. You see this all the time, and they sit on them. You absolutely want to be that butterfly tree. You could get all of your customers by having a butterfly net and running around like a demented fool trying to catch them into your net and drag them in. Or you could grow a beautiful butterfly tree and then have it strong with lots of root work, and then all your beautiful butterflies will come and sit on you, and you will start to get that rolling, thriving business that you understand. But you have to start. You have to start at that root work. You have to really think about what you're doing. You have to put in the hard yards. And, things like doing profitability exercises, understanding your average sale. You might go to bed thinking, oh, my average sale is absolutely dreadful, and lie in bed worrying about it. But at least if you understand it, you can wake up in the morning and do something about it.
Yeah. Instead
of going to bed worrying about your numbers and not really knowing them, and waking up in the morning thinking, oh my goodness, it's all terrible. What can I do about it?
And that's being a business. That is running a business. A lot of your day to day will be solving problems.
Yeah.
Solving problems. And I think the way that when I was in my clinic, I had loads of problems. I weren't profitable, I wasn't marketing right, and these were my problems, but I weren't spending time solving my problems because I didn't know how to. Instead, I was just going to go and do another course, so then I could offer another service, and then hopefully all them problems would go away because I can offer them a new service. People sitting listening to this are going to go, wow, that is a lot of things that I need to do. And I have no idea what I need to focus on first because everything feels so urgent. So if you were saying these are the things that you need to focus on tomorrow, get up first thing in the morning, and before you even have your first coffee, look at these 3 things. What would be those 3 things in an aesthetic clinic?
So the 3 things would be who are you aiming for, what are you offering them, and how are you offering it to them? In other words, how are you getting out there and showing up for the world? So that, you can't do business without marketing. The 2 things go hand in hand. I'm not a marketing expert. My background isn't marketing. My background is business and television and all sorts of other things. But what I do is I understand marketing. I understand what I want from my marketing. Have I always got it naturally? No, but I take time. So you know who you're aiming for. You know what you've got to offer. You've hopefully done all the bits that go around that, like aligning yourself, being in the proper place. And then you go out and work, how much budget have I got? Right. Am I going to spend that budget on some SEO? Or actually, have I got only a limited amount of budget, so what can I do with hardly any budget at all? Is this about promotion in my clinic? Is this about getting out into my local community and doing a bit of self-promotion in business groups and in Facebook groups and all of that kind of thing, so you can start to get that ball rolling. So you have to work out what resources you have and how you're going to apply those resources. But go and learn the skills. Spend some time working with somebody who will keep you accountable, that will keep you on track, because it is so easy to pick up your toys and go home again.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to, once you know who you are and who you're offering it to, you have to say, right, how am I going to learn to do that? And how am I going to stay accountable and on track? How am I going to find somebody who's going to keep pulling me out of my comfort zone and keep moving me forward? Albeit, even if that's just like one little toe in front of another, rather than big giant strides. But how am I going to stay accountable and stay on track and keep moving forward? So work out those sort of fundamentals and then dive in. And as I said, be tenacious about it.
And me, for like, obviously I'm in marketing, and I think the clinics that I see that are really successful and doing really well are the ones who've nailed the personal and clinic branding. So they've started from the outset knowing exactly why they're getting into the industry, exactly who they want to attract, and then how to attract those people. They're so confident in the personal branding and the clinic branding that everything they do just comes across as so natural, because they get in front of a camera and they know exactly who they're talking to. They know them, they're in the clinic, they've met them, and that's where that branding perspective comes in. And I think doing a little groundwork on who am I, why am I doing this, why did I go into aesthetics? You know, one of the clinics I work with who's got the best personal branding, the whole reason she got into aesthetics was because she suffered so badly with her skin all the way through her 20s, teenage years, that she was just obsessed with having the best skincare, because she'd been failed by GPs. Sorry, GPs out there. She'd been failed by, you know, getting bad skincare advice, and that's what got her into aesthetics. And whenever she talks about it on camera, it just comes across so natural, because it is.
Yeah.
Because she knows why she's doing it and who she's talking to.
I think, and that's a really valid point. One of my clinicians that I've worked with for a long time, actually, when you say to her, what's your unique selling point? And hers is a really interesting one, because she says, I've always felt like an unattractive woman. And she said, I always felt like an unattractive teenager and then an unattractive woman as I got older. And she said, I then realised that actually you don't have to be an unattractive woman to feel like one. But if you emotionally feel like that, there are a lot of women out there who resonate with that. And so she started talking about that, and she started talking about, you know, how she went through a journey of feeling like she deserved to have treatments and wanted to have treatments, and, you know, that it would give her the sort of natural results she wanted. And so she talks to all the women out there who feel that way about themselves. And of course, that means those people listen to her, because she understands it. She comes from the heart when she's talking about it. And, you know, she has an absolutely thriving clinic. She knows who she's talking to. People worry all the time that by kind of naming a niche or niching down that they're going to exclude lots of other people. And that's not true. You know, for instance, you know, I go and see several great clinicians for skincare treatments and all sorts of things, and they may be aiming to for me for certain reasons. But then if my 25-year-old daughter was considering having something, I would say to her, oh, go
there, they're brilliant.
I recommend them. So, you know, you end up seeing a whole variety of people. You don't just end up seeing the people in your niche. But if you're passionate about something, like I'm super passionate about helping women in business, because I feel like women do so many things. You know, they try and be all things to
We're up against
all people. Yeah. And, you know, it may feel like not a very PC thing to say these days, but I do think women still get the kind of the harder end of
the bargain.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, it's in their nature usually to want to try and do well with their job and their career, but, you know, do well with their families, and then also fit in with taking care of parents and all of that kind of thing.
We're born with guilt.
Yeah.
Mum guilt, wife guilt.
Yeah. And at what point do you put yourself forward in business? But I think if you really want something, then you should try and do all of those other things, but also put yourself forward. Be brave, decide that you want it for you and that you're entitled to have it, and then you go for it. And if that means you have to sideline a few other things, that's fine. But I'm definitely all about, I don't like the word empowering because it makes it feel like I'm giving somebody else the power, but I want women to take their power, recognise it, and do something really exciting with it. And go forward. So anytime I can enable some, and people say to me, what's your reason for going into business? Why do you work for yourself? Because obviously I've worked for other people a lot as well. And I say, well, actually, my main reason is I hate being told what to do by anybody.
Same.
Drives me absolutely mad. So I kind of think if I work for myself, I've only got myself to tell myself what to do. And that works really well for me. So if that's your reason, if you want to work for yourself because you want to be your own boss and be in charge of things, then go for that as well. It doesn't matter what your reason is, just make that reason strong enough.
Like last week was a really difficult week, but personal and business wise. And I thought, God, thinking about like how hard it is to run a business, be a mom, you know, everything that life throws in, you know, like laptop breaking, and you think, God, this is hard. It is hard. But then the thought of going back to being told what to do every single hour of every, like 12.5 hour shift, when I can eat, when I can go from a break, having to work night shifts, passive aggressive emails, the thought of going back to that, I'm like, I don't care how hard this is, it's still better than that to me.